Chosen one, there's a reason the room feels lighter, the air clearer, the silence more sacred than ever before. You didn't imagine the weight that suddenly lifted. You weren't overreacting when you felt something leave that had no business staying. Heaven removed what your heart couldn't, and the peace you feel now, that's not coincidence, it's confirmation. There was a presence that had camped in your life, wearing the disguise of love, friendship, support. But all the while, it was a spiritual parasite. A snake, assigned not to love you but to study you, smile with you, blend in just enough to get access, close enough to touch the oil but never called to carry it. They had you questioning your own discernment. You sensed it, but ignored it. You felt it, but silenced it. You stayed kind when you should have stayed away, but your mercy didn't protect you, it delayed you. So heaven stepped in. Some exits are ordered. Not accidental. You thought they just drifted, that it was mutual, that it ended quietly. But nothing about their exit was natural. It was a divine interruption, an extraction, because they were interfering with your next season, tying knots in your destiny with spiritual language and emotional manipulation. And God in His mercy removed what would have kept you circling the same pain for years. You didn't lose them. You lost the delay, the fake prayers, the silent curses, the jealous smiles, the sabotaged peace. Heaven didn't ask for your permission, it asked for your protection. And when your heart couldn't cut the cord, the Spirit did. You were never paranoid. You were prophetic. That heaviness you felt, that cloud that would settle when they entered the room, that strange confusion that followed every conversation, it wasn't random. It was warfare, and your Spirit was warning you, not because you were weak, but because you were growing. And snakes always coil tighter when they sense their grip slipping, but you gave them grace. You defended them to others. You silenced your instincts because of history. You gave them chances because of loyalty. And still, they fed off your light and cursed your name in rooms you hadn't even entered yet. They saw your potential and feared it. So they played nice just long enough to stay close to the throne God was building for you. But heaven has no tolerance for hidden enemies in divine circles, and now they're gone. Heaven won't let snakes sit in seats reserved for destiny. God is not just protecting your peace, He is protecting your position. Because what you are about to step into, the favor that's unlocking, the acceleration that's been activated, the blessings that are aligning, they require clean air. They require clear hands. They require purified company. And the snake you tolerated would have contaminated everything. So heaven shut it down. Quietly, decisively, without chaos, without warning. You didn't even need to fight for the separation, because God knew your heart was too kind to cut them off, but your destiny was too important to let them stay. The name will come up, and when it does, you'll know. You may hear it in passing. You may get a message. You may see something online. And when you do, you'll feel it, that chill, that stillness, that holy clarity. And your spirit will whisper, "There it is. That was the one." Not to stir old pain, but to bring closure, because the name will sting, but it will also heal. The silence you once called confusion is now revealed as peace, and what you thought was a loss was actually your release. They didn't just leave, they were extracted. Heaven didn't just let them go, heaven pulled them out, because what's coming next is sacred. And snakes cannot sit near sacred. You're about to build something too holy. You're about to step into rooms too prophetic. You're about to walk into favor too pure. And their presence would have polluted it. Their words would have twisted it. Their energy would have sabotaged it. So heaven made the decision, so you wouldn't have to. You will feel yourself. Return, your laughter will come back. Your sleep will deepen. Your creativity will spike. Your clarity will sharpen, because the interference has been removed. They didn't just betray you, they tangled your atmosphere. But now the cords have been cut, and the sound of your soul is getting louder. Your body will stop carrying the tension it didn't even know it held. Your breath will expand. Your thoughts will become lighter. This is not imagination. This is healing. You're not losing a friend. You're losing a blockage. What they called connection was really containment. What you thought was love was control. What you labeled as support was actually surveillance. And now that they're gone, heaven can finally breathe through you without resistance. New people will start to appear. You'll attract those who match your purpose, not your past. You'll be met with celebration, not competition. And you won't have to shrink to fit in anymore, because the room has finally been cleared for those worthy of your light. Let this be your declaration. I didn't lose love. I lost manipulation. I didn't lose a friend. I lost interference. I didn't lose peace. I finally found it. Drop a comment below. My peace is protected. My spirit is free. Subscribe to Bible Peak for more bold words that confirm what heaven has already whispered to your soul. The snake is gone, the air is clear, and your next season, it just became uninterrupted. Chosen one, now that the interference has been removed, now that your atmosphere has been cleared, you must understand one thing above all. God didn't expose them to destroy you. He exposed them to protect you. You weren't losing your mind. You weren't overthinking. You weren't being too sensitive. You were discerning. You were aligned. You were hearing what your emotions tried to silence. That feeling that lingered after every conversation, that sense that something was always slightly off. That spiritual fatigue that followed their visits, their messages, their proximity. It was never just emotional tension, it was spiritual friction. And because you stayed loyal to peace, heaven made the call. Heaven didn't just reveal what was fake. It revealed what was fatal. Some things don't just block your blessing. They carry the power to abort it. That connection wasn't just holding you back. It was slowly choking your sensitivity. It was wrapping itself around your spirit like a vine, draining the flow of revelation, muffling your hunger for the word, quieting your urgency to pray. They didn't yell. They didn't fight. They just kept showing up with passive resistance, smiling while praying against your growth, laughing with you, while wishing you'd dim again. And still, you stayed soft. Still, you stayed kind. Still, you covered them in prayer. But your loyalty to the wrong spirit was delaying your assignment from the right one. So God did what only God can do. He let the mask slip. When God exposes, it's never out of cruelty. It's always for clarity. Exposure isn't to shame them, it's to save you. Because if He had let you stay, if He had let them stay close during this next level, they would have gained access to blessings they never honored. They would have spoken death into something God was breathing into. They would have danced at your table while poisoning your cup under it. And God said, no, not here. Not this time. You've grown too much to let sabotage ride beside you into your next season. You've carried too much oil to let leeches drink it without reverence. You've waited too long for this door to let a snake slip in beside you. So the covering was removed, the heart was revealed, and now you're free. Don't confuse exposure with bitterness. This is divine wisdom. You're not angry. You're not even vengeful. You're clear, clearer than you've ever been. Because when heaven peels back what you wouldn't, the result isn't hate, it's healing. You stop defending people who only love the dimmed version of you. You stop explaining your fire to those who were quietly putting it out. You stop lowering your standard just to avoid tension. Because now you know, it wasn't your growth that was the problem, it was their refusal to grow with you. And when you stopped shrinking to make them comfortable, they showed you who they always were. God let you see it quietly, so you could leave peacefully. Some exposures don't come with confrontation, they come with confirmation. God didn't need a fight to reveal their heart. He just pulled back the veil, and suddenly, their words didn't land the same. Their presence didn't feel safe. Their laughter sounded different. Their support felt like strategy. You didn't need an argument. You didn't need an explanation. You didn't even need closure. You got clarity. And that was enough. Now, your heart is free from false alignment. Now your spirit is clear. Now you can hear heaven without their static. You were always going to outgrow what was meant to be temporary. Some relationships weren't toxic. They were timed. They had an expiration date. And you tried to preserve them beyond their season. But God is too intentional to let you carry weight that was never yours to bear. You loved them past the assignment. You believed in them beyond their character. You invested in someone who only wanted your presence, not your purpose, and still you tried. But now that they're gone, your energy is back. Your mind is light. Your vision is returning. Your prayer life is expanding. Because you were never the issue. Their presence was. The ones who leave when you level up were sent to reveal the room. They couldn't handle the glow. They couldn't tolerate the grace. They couldn't celebrate what they secretly competed with. So they walked away, or heaven walked them out, and now you're realizing something deeper. They were never your people. They were your training. They taught you how to hear the Holy Spirit without noise. They taught you to trust what you sensed before you had proof. They taught you that peace is a decision, not a reaction. They taught you to recognize familiar spirits disguised as support, and you will never miss that lesson again. Let their silence confirm what you already knew. You didn't get a goodbye. You didn't get an explanation. You got a void, and in that void, God spoke clearly. They were never part of the promise, just the process. You are not bitter. You are not broken. You are wise now. And because of that wisdom, your next season will be cleaner, lighter, sharper, protected. Heaven has already sent replacements, covenant friendships, people who pray when you're not in the room, people who see your light and shield it, not siphon it. But you would have missed them had you stayed distracted by the familiar. This is what the gift of sight really feels like. God has restored your eyes. You see beyond smiles. You hear beyond words. You feel atmospheres change before others notice. And now, you move like a watchman, not a wanderer, because you learned the I'd see hard way what discernment costs when ignored. And now your peace is too precious to gamble. You are not reactive anymore. You are reflective. You are grounded. You are protected. Because exposure wasn't your punishment. It was your permission to be free. And now you will never go back to blindness again, chosen one. Now that your eyes have been opened and your peace has been restored, you must confront a holy reality. You were not just protected. You were preserved. The reason the betrayal didn't break you, the reason the silence didn't crush you, the reason the exposure didn't destroy you, is because God was keeping you in hiding, not to delay your purpose but to deepen your roots. You were growing while they were watching. You were healing while they were gossiping. You were being fortified while they were busy faking loyalty, and now that you've been separated from the interference, what's coming next isn't restoration. It's release. You are not just healed. You are ready. God didn't waste the waiting. He was maturing the mantle. You thought you were stuck. You thought you were passed over. You thought you were invisible. But the truth is, God was covering you. Because premature exposure leads to premature destruction, and what you carry is too holy to be placed in environments that can't honor it. So while others ran ahead chasing platforms, you were learning how to manage warfare, learning how to discern spirits, learning how to fast when nobody else understood the assignment, learning how to stand alone and still hear heaven clearly. You weren't being ignored, you were being equipped. Now you carry the kind of power that shifts atmospheres. You're not louder. You're more precise. You're not flashier. You're more focused. You don't react anymore, you recalibrate. Because now when you walk into rooms, the atmosphere shifts. Not because of charisma, but because of consecration. Your silence has become thunder in the spirit. Your boundaries have become gates of glory. Your pace has become a rebuke to the culture of chaos. They don't understand how you changed. They don't see how you transformed. But heaven knows because heaven did it, and now, the ones who tried to limit you will have to watch the God they mocked elevate you anyway. You're not returning to the version of you that needed validation. You've crossed over now. You no longer crave their apology. You no longer require their acceptance. You no longer fear their opinions. Because you've found something deeper than approval. You've found assignment. And when you live from assignment, you stop explaining your obedience to people who were never called to carry your cross. You don't need them to understand your anointing. You don't need them to clap for your convictions. You don't need them to validate your value. Because, now you know, heaven's yes is louder than man's applause. You're not just recovered, you're rewired. What tried to kill your faith has made you unshakable. What tried to silence your gift has made you bolder. What tried to destroy your character has actually refined your discernment. You no longer move from emotion, you move from assignment. You no longer respond out of impulse, you respond from authority. You are no longer driven by urgency, you are guided by revelation. You are walking in a measured fire, the kind that doesn't burn out because it's fueled by heaven. You don't shout to be heard, you speak when heaven says now. And when you speak, demons lose footing, because your power is not noise, it's weight. And the ones who betrayed you can't recognize the you that rose. They knew you before the fire. They knew you before the pressing. They knew you before the silence. And now, they're confused. You look the same, but you carry something different. You sound the same, but there's an edge in your words that wasn't there before. You move the same, but your steps are ordered by something they can't name. That's because you were born again in silence. You died to ego. You died to approval. You died to needing their presence, and now, the you they thought they could manipulate no longer exists. You're not called to impress. You're called to instruct. You're not rising for vanity. You're rising for impact. You're not here to build a brand. You're here to birth a blueprint. You're not here to be followed. You're here to plant foundations. What they called ambition was actually assignment. What they called distance was actually obedience. What they called pride was actually protection of sacred oil. You are now the one they'll come to when everything falls apart. Why? Because they mocked your silence, but they can't deny your fruit. God is now redeeming the years that were stolen. This is not just elevation. This is recompense. Every year you spent in unnecessary warfare, restored. Every door that was shut, in your face, replaced with better. Every lie that was told about you, now reversed by public honor. Heaven is making up for the time they wasted trying to dim your light. Because God doesn't just restore, He multiplies. And in this season, your results will speak louder than your memory of pain. Let this be your heart's declaration. I am not who I used to be. I am not who they thought I was. I am not broken, I am built. I am not desperate, I am disciplined. I am not distracted, I am dangerous in the spirit. And I will never again apologize for the fire I carry. You were preserved for this, not to blend in, but to build what others abandoned. You don't carry hype, you carry heaven. And now the kingdom moves, not because you shouted, but because you showed up. Chosen one, now that you have survived, the silence matured in the fire and risen from what was meant to destroy you, it is time to fully embrace this truth. You were not just delivered, you were deployed. This final chapter is not a soft landing into comfort. It is the commissioning of a warrior who has been trained in pain, refined in prayer, and trusted with the weight of glory. You were not preserved for applause. You were preserved for assignment. And now heaven is sending you out. You're not just restored. You are recruited. You are not just free. You are fortified. You don't just carry testimony. You carry tools, weapons, keys, blueprints. And now everything you've been through is about to become a foundation for others to walk on. Donner, you were raised in private to lead in power. God didn't allow you to be seen while you were bleeding. He covered you. God didn't allow you to be celebrated while you were learning. He hid you. God didn't let them promote you before you were ready. He protected your process. And now, what was once your struggle has become your strategy. You don't preach theory. You speak with thunder because you've lived it. You don't speak church talk. You speak with weight. You don't speak to impress. You instruct, you interrupt, you ignite. Because you don't just carry freedom, you carry fire. Heaven has assigned you to build, not blend. This next level will not be about fitting in. It will not be about being accepted. You're not here to be invited to their table. You are called to flip it if needed. You are not here to decorate broken systems. You are here to dismantle and rebuild. You are not here to play political games. You are here to govern with integrity. You're not just another voice. You are a breaker, a restorer, a reformer, and yes, it will cost you comfort. Yes, it will provoke criticism. Yes, it will trigger those still loyal to dead systems. But you were never called to be soft. You were called to be sharp. And in this season, the edge you carry will be felt. What tried to break you became your oil. They'll ask, how do you move like that? How do you speak with such fire? How do you pray with such clarity? And you'll answer, because I bled for this. Because I broke for this. Because I died to everything you're still afraid to let go of. You didn't read your way into this power. You wept into it. You didn't network your way into rooms. You survived them. And now, the oil is undeniable. Not the oil of charisma, not the oil of imitation, the oil of heavenly evidence. God is expanding your influence for kingdom reasons. This is not a personal glow-up. This is a spiritual dispatch. You will be sent into rooms you didn't apply for. Be invited into conversations you didn't chase. Be trusted with strategies that are not of this world, not because you're perfect, but because you're pure. God is expanding your reach not to make you famous, but to make you effective. You're not just breaking chains, you're training deliverers. You're not just making impact, you're creating infrastructure. You're not just raising your voice, you're raising a standard. There is no going back, and that's the point. The door is shut, the snake is gone, the fog is lifted, and your new name has been etched in the spirit. You are not who you were. You've crossed the threshold. You've stepped into mantle. And the version of you that needed permission to rise has been buried with your old season. Now you lead. Now you speak. Now you carry. Now you build. And there's no turning back. Your life is now a weapon in the hands of God. You don't need a title. You don't need a platform. You don't need to wait for another opportunity. You are the opportunity. You are the movement. You are the revival. You are the voice that will provoke nations and protect generations. You are the evidence that obedience still wins, that purity still protects, that God still honors the secret. Yes, this is no longer preparation. This is deployment. This is what they didn't see coming. They thought the silence was your breakdown. They thought the rejection was your limit. They thought the separation was the end, but it was the birthing. And now, you are not a threat. You are the fulfillment of every prophecy, of every tear, of every promise whispered in a prayer closet no one saw. And your very presence will now convict systems, shake environments, and awaken those who've been asleep far too long. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be light. And when the darkness resists, it will not stand. Let this be your final declaration. I was hidden, not rejected. I was broken, not disqualified. I was trained, not passed over. And now I am not just delivered, I am deployed. And I will go where He sends me, carry what He gives me, and leave no part of me on the battlefield. This is the sound of a life, commissioned. This is the sound of a throne room decision. This is the sound of one who's been through the valley, through the silence, through the shaking, and has come out as fire. You are not unstable. You are unshakable. And your time is now.